In today's video, I want to go over the top 10 IPOs that I think might happen in 2018. Let's go. Welcome back, guys, to the channel. My name is Nick, and if you like investing, personal finance, or anything related to the stock market, this is a channel for you, and I encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below. Now let's get into the video. Alright, so first of all, before I get into the details, I just want you guys to know that these are 10 companies that I think will go public in 2018. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will. There could be a lot of other bigger companies that decide to go public in 2018. But as of right now, doing my research, these are the 10 that I will personally be keeping an eye on. Okay, so let's get into the first one here, which is Spotify. So there's been a lot of news come out recently about Spotify, but before we get into that, let's go over what Spotify is. So it's really a music streaming service. We do have competitors like Amazon, Google, even Apple in this space. But I believe that Spotify is kind of the dominant platform here. You could think of it kind of like the equivalent to Netflix is to TV shows, Spotify is to music. I personally have been using Spotify for the last few years. I think it's awesome, and I think that it's a great service that anyone who is a music enthusiast or likes to listen to music should definitely look into. They even have things like podcasts and other things on there, so it's a really cool platform, and for a fee of around $10 a month or so, but they also have family plans available. It's pretty inexpensive to get all the music you want, unlimited, ads-free. So I see Spotify going into the future as kind of like a company that'll be its own record label. So you could think of how Netflix has kind of gone in and created original content for a lot of shows that's on there right now. I think in the future that Spotify has the potential to be that company that signs artists and has its own record label. That way they're going to be generating a lot more profits moving forward. Now, I don't know if this is likely or if it's possible, but I think if Netflix was able to do this with the TV space, that Spotify should be able to do this with the music space. So there has been some news that's come out recently that has said that Spotify does plan to go public, and they have filed to go public, but they aren't going to be going through the traditional IPO route. That's all still speculation. There isn't anything concrete and confirmed from Spotify about this, but I will keep an eye out for Spotify, especially in the first half of 2018, because that's when most people expect them to go public. Okay, so the second company that we have here is Uber. Uber is a company I'm sure most of us in North America have heard of, and a lot of us, surprisingly, around the world have heard of it as well, because there are a lot of companies that support the Uber app. Now, I personally in Toronto here use Uber all the time, especially on cold days when I don't want to drive through the city, look for parking, all that kind of stuff. Uber is just one click away. You can select different types of vehicles, different levels, and all that kind of stuff. And it's relatively inexpensive for the service that you get, especially if you share it with friends. Now, Uber has been rumored to be going public for a while, for the last few years. 2018 might be the year that this happens, and if it does, it's currently valued at around $60 to $70 billion. So that'll be one of the largest IPOs that we'll see this year, if that happens. The third company that we have here is Lyft. So Lyft is very similar to Uber, same idea, same concept. It's a ride-sharing application, but Lyft doesn't have as much of a reach as Uber does. So for example, here in Toronto, Canada, there isn't Lyft available. The only option that we really have is Uber, and Uber really has a monopoly here. I'm not really sure why Lyft hasn't looked into expanding here or expanding globally as much as Uber has, because I know there is a lot of legal issues, but Uber's kind of been the one fighting those legal issues, and now all Lyft has to do really is just jump in and just take advantage of that. Because a lot of governments have gone in and said, okay, fine, you can run your ride-sharing app alongside the taxi app, but these are the limitations you have. So I don't see why Lyft doesn't take advantage of this and join markets that they're not in already. The biggest thing that I personally like about Lyft is that Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, actually has put in a $1 billion investment into Lyft. So this is significant because if Alphabet believes in this company, I think that it's definitely worth taking a look at. And I think that in the future that Alphabet could possibly take over and own all of Lyft to compete with Uber, because they do see that this is a good space for them to be in, especially with their self-driving cars. So that's something to look out for going into 2018 or maybe even a few years down the road. So as it stands right now, Lyft is valued between $10 and $15 billion, which is much less than Uber. But if they do go public, that'll be a pretty reasonable price for them to get in at. Number 4, we have a company called AVAYA. So AVAYA has been making a lot of news recently because they have come out recently of Chapter 11. They are a company that has been around for a very long time, big competitors like Cisco and Mitel, and they're really big in the UC space, contact centers, all that kind of stuff. So they have come out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection recently, and they have announced that they will be going public, but there's no full details on that yet and what valuation that will be at. So keep an eye out for that because this would be another good tech play to look out for in 2018. Number 5, we have a company called XIAOMI. So XIAOMI is a pretty large hardware smartphone manufacturer in China. They give Huawei a good run for their money out there in China, and they make pretty solid products in my opinion. So it's not just smartphones that they make, but they make surrounding devices around that as well, like battery packs and all that kind of stuff. And they have pretty good quality considering it's just a Chinese brand. And I would say their quality is on par, if not better, than like flagship Huawei devices, like the Nexus 6P. XIAOMI has a very high chance of going public in 2018. And if they do, they will come in at around a $50 billion valuation. And this will be one of the largest IPOs in history if that does happen. Number 6, we have a company called AIRBNB. So for those of you that are not familiar with Airbnb, what it does is it lets you as, say, a house owner rent out your space, whether that's the whole house or a room in your house. And you as a traveler go in and rent out spots that you want to see within the city, maybe because hotels are too expensive in that area, or maybe there aren't any hotels available in that area. So what Airbnb does is it allows people who own property to rent out their property for short periods of time to travelers or people in the area who are looking for a cheap alternative to hotels. Now, I personally have used Airbnb quite a few times. Most often it would be with a big group of friends. When we go out to a cottage or something like that, we rent out an Airbnb. That way it can sustain maybe 10 or 15 people because no one that I know personally owns a cottage. So this is a good alternative for that, and it'll run us a few $100s. But split among, say, 10 or 15 people, it's fairly cheap to have a good weekend out with friends. I also used Airbnb when I traveled to Japan a couple years ago. Airbnb is awesome when you're in Japan because you can go out to all these rural places, find a spot to stay, and you don't have to pay an arm and a leg for hotels. Hotels are not cheap in Japan, and Airbnbs, although they are expensive and more expensive than other areas that I've seen, it is still a fairly decent price. Not only that, but you can also find locations that are very secluded, like say near Mount Fuji, and you can get an Airbnb in that location as well. So overall, I think the value that Airbnb brings is awesome. It opens up the doors for a lot more travelers and a lot more people to earn a bit more income if they own property. And overall, I'm a big fan of this company. Now, if they do go public in 2018, they will come in at a valuation of around 30 to 40 billion, which is fairly high. But looking at the market like hotels and resorts and all that kind of stuff, that's where Airbnb really wants to compete in, and those are valued very high. So I think it might be a fair valuation for Airbnb to come into the market with. Number 7, we have a company called DROPBOX. So DROPBOX was one of the first, I believe, to actually have file storage in the cloud available for anyone for free. So what it does really is you can go create an account on DROPBOX and you're given, I think it's somewhere between 2 and 5 gigabytes of storage for free. And you can upload large files on there and share that with friends or family or whoever, and they can go in and download that file for free. Now, DROPBOX has been rumored to be going public for a while. There are no confirmed rumors for 2018, but if we look at their valuation back in 2014, which is quite a while ago, they were valued at around 10 to 15 billion. So we could see maybe around a 15 or 20 billion valuation because although they have been around for a while and they have grown, competition has grown as well. You'll notice things like Google Drive and all that kind of stuff. So it's not really that unique of a product anymore, and this is not really an IPO that I personally would invest in if it does come to fruition in 2018. Number 8, we have a company called Ancestry.com. Now this is a company that's primarily available in North America and Europe, and that's because they claim that they own records of 7 billion people in North America and Europe. Now what they do really is they create family trees so that you can go in, look up who your great-great-great-grandfather is or whatever, and you can kind of create your family tree that way, see who you were related to and all that kind of stuff. Now, although this is cool in concept, I don't think a lot of people out there really care, to be honest. It's not something that I personally am big on. I don't really want to look into this. There's no incentive for me to look into this. And it is a subscription service where you pay them monthly, I believe. So don't quote me on that. But from my research, that's what it looked like. And I don't think that this is really a company that's going to sustain itself going forward. It's not really something people are interested in, to be honest. Anyways, if they do go public in 2018, they will be valued at around $3 billion, which in my opinion is still high considering the fact that they're not really relevant with younger people or say anyone even below the age of 30. So yes, maybe they will go public, maybe they will have success in the original IPO, but it's not a company that I personally, again, would invest in. Number 9, we have a company called ZSCALER. So this is a security-based company. They create things like firewalls, SSLs, all that kind of stuff. Anything to do with security to secure enterprises specifically. So I know a lot of companies out there, especially tech companies, are really heavy on security because you do want to keep your data secured. Banks, all this kind of stuff, of course, as well. And ZSCALER is one of those companies that comes in and says, look at our product. We can secure everything in your company. This is what we guarantee, and this is how we're going to do it. And to be honest, I have seen their product across multiple industries, and I have seen their product across multiple large companies as well. So this could be a good IPO play to watch out for. I don't know if they compete directly with companies like Palo Alto, but this would be good to kind of stir up the market in that segment because Palo Alto has been having phenomenal growth in the last few years. And I think it's time that more competition comes in to kind of push more innovation in the space. So if they do go public in 2018, they'll be valued at around $1 billion, which is definitely a fair valuation considering the customers that they have. And this might be one that I'll be looking to invest in if they do go public. Alright, so the 10th and final company that we have on this list is Pinterest. So Pinterest has been rumored to be going public for the last few years. 2018, it might happen, it might not. But Pinterest is pretty much an application where you can go in and save images. So for example, I got married in 2017 and my wife used Pinterest when she was looking for hairstyle designs for her wedding day. And she would go through Google image searches and all that kind of stuff. When she found an image that she liked or a hairstyle that she liked, she would pin that, attach it to Pinterest, and then later she would kind of have a consolidated view of all her favorite hairstyles, which she can go through and then finally make her decision on her favorite one through there. So I mean, there's a lot of use cases for Pinterest. I mean, this is just one industry that it could help in, but honestly, I don't think this is really a company that I would ever invest in. This could easily be replicated by other companies or other applications even out there. Google could easily create an extension into Chrome and they could easily have that integrate in with your smartphone as well. So this is not really a company that I personally would invest in. It's not a company that I could personally see growing in the next 5-10 years. And honestly, if anything, they would just get purchased by one of the larger social media companies. So Pinterest is valued between 12 and 13 billion, which is again very high. But when you look at other social media companies like Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, that's kind of where Pinterest believes that their audience is and that's their core target. So they do believe that a $12-13 billion valuation is fair. In my opinion, I don't think that that's really reasonable. I think it should be much lower than that. But you never know, the market is irrational sometimes. And if they do go public, we could see this shoot up to over a $20 billion company in no time. Or see it go down to a $1 billion company in no time. Either way, the market is irrational. Don't make decisions based on the hype. Do your research. And if you plan to invest in any of these IPOs that I covered today, make sure that you understand the fundamentals of the business. Make sure you read through the reports of the business when they do go public, and then invest your money. Don't just throw it in there speculatively and hope for the best. Because that's how a lot of investors lose a lot of money, and I would hate for any of you guys to fall into that trap. So this video's question comes from Beyond Genetics, and they ask, these are all some expensive stocks. How about some value stocks? Now, as you guys know, I personally am more of a growth investor. A lot of the companies that I invest in are growth companies, so I don't really look for value plays as much. I am starting to look into them more in 2018 because I do want to diversify my portfolio. If you guys follow my channel, you know that. And I do want to have some safer plays in my portfolio. But for this question, I would really have to turn it to you guys, the viewers. So I want you to comment down below and let Beyond Genetics know what are some value companies that he could take a look at to possibly invest in. Alright, so that's the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the support. I love the support we got on the last couple of videos, and I hope to keep churning out these videos for you guys. There's a lot more changes coming, so make sure you stay tuned. But either way, I want to remind you to invest positively, and happy investing. Peace.